Everybody, welcome back to Addiction and the Three Principles. My name is Greg Suki. I'm here with my cohort, Harry Dervitsky, and today we are joined by Amanda O'Shea. And I'm really interested in where this topic goes today, because I think it's a pretty vital one to cover. And what we're going to talk about is how the real journey begins after you leave a treatment program or a recovery center, because that's when you get back into real life and dealing with the things that you were trying to kind of escape in the first place. So that's really when the important part of the journey begins. And I'd like to go ahead and pass it over to Harry for his introduction for Amanda, and we'll get going.
Well, when I did the Golden Moments course, one of the neat things is you're reminded of what people say. And there was this guy who I couldn't remember. His name was Philip. And he said very strongly that people in addiction love recovery programs, but they have a tremendous difficulty when they leave the recovery program. And that sent off some lights in my head and so on. And then about 3 weeks or a month later, Joe Bailey was talking at Christian McNeil's addiction program, and Amanda was there, and she brought up that their recovery center in Spain is starting to concentrate a lot more emphasis on the stage when people leave a recovery center. Very similar, like in prison, when I was counseling this guy in prison, and when he came out, I said, "Come on and spend a week with me." And he said 10 people got out that day, and 9 went to Maine and Hastings, which is the heart of the drug and alcohol and so on. They all headed directly there within a minute. And he came over to my place, and we spent a week there. And I saw that the transition, which is always a difficult situation, is really important. So when I write my second book, that would be an aspect that I would put in, because it has to be part of any recovery program to be effective. And so Amanda brought that topic up specifically. And so I thought it would be fun to hear what she has to say about that.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that, Harry. Yeah, I'd love to. So, well, just hello everybody, and just to let you know that I'm originally from London, but I've been living in Spain for the past 13 years. And I've been around the understanding of the three principles for about 6 or 7 years now. And I've been working with it in the field of recovery for the last 2 years full time. So I'd worked with addiction before. I've had experiences working with people and personal experiences with close friends and family in addiction. But actually, I'd never had the opportunity to work in an addiction center or in a recovery center with people in the height of their addictions. That's been an amazing gift for me. It really has been. It's been an honor to be a part of people's journeys. And we run, I think, our program and our center a little bit differently to a lot of the other centers that I hear about. As a company, we own a few centers. We've got 2 houses here in Spain, and we've also got 3 and just opening our 4th in the UK. So we're on an expansion ourselves, sort of globally. But one of the big things that I think that we really emphasize on is that we're really big on love and care. And so when people come into us at Step 1 Recovery, apparently they're not treated like the way that they're treated in some of the other treatment centers. That's what I've heard. I've got a guy in here at the moment. This is his 15th recovery center. And, and I hear that a lot. There's people who have just been out, and they go out and they come back in, they go out and they come back in. And he said this is the first time that he's really felt the love. And so that's where I see that, a lot of our program really is on that sharing sharing what we know to be true, but also just that people really can get, like we talked about before, Harry, into that feeling. Yeah. And I can see Greg nodding and Harry nodding, and there's something about where you get people into that feeling. Now we're really lucky here because we're in Spain, and our rules don't seem to have to be so strict, and we don't do things like take everything off of everybody as they enter. We don't take off their phones. We don't take off their laptops or their tablets. We don't run it like a sort of like a medical center as such. I mean, of course, we've got our medical facilities. We don't run it. I hear some people saying, "Oh, it was like a prison the last place I was in." We don't. The doors are open. We haven't had anyone ever run away from here or try to run away. In fact, it's funny that we're talking about people leaving, because people don't normally want to leave here. And everyone becomes a friend, and actually people come back just to visit. It's sort of, they just come back in for a top-up week. They just come back in. And before they go, I think that is one of the things, is that we really see and we really understand what it's like when we go back out there. And all I hear is, well, it's like a bubble in here. This is like a bubble. Of course I'm safe in here. Of course I am. And what we started to do was we also started to, we started to look into our aftercare program, but we also started to work with a lot of the friends or families of people who were in here. Because there's one thing that somebody comes in and they have their own kind of wake up, or they have their own psychic change or shift, or whatever you want to say, but then they're going back maybe into a situation, they're going back into families who haven't had the gift of hearing, where our experience is really coming from. And so that seems like a big challenge for people, I think, because it's great being in here. It's great when everybody sees how thoughts get brought alive and, creating into a feeling that then people have previously, acted out on. When people have got a sense of that, when people have been introduced to that, when they really get to insightfully see it for themselves to be true, where their feelings are truly coming from, and they get a sense that, wow, they kind of take their power back, and they get to see that they don't have to reach out for something that they were in a habit of to take away this horrible feeling of anxiety or that knot in our stomach. So that's great. So we can do that for people. But if we can get another member of the family on board, or if we can get somebody to just get a taste of what their loved one has been going through, but what their loved one has seen as well, that's so helpful. Because what happens is, we go back out into a world, and even though we've seen something to be true, if we've been able to see enough, sometimes people are only in here for 4 weeks. I love it when people are able to spend a little longer with us, 6 or 7 weeks or 8 weeks. I love it when they've had the opportunity for their sort of depth of understanding to really sink in. But as we know, we're only ever that heartbeat away from insightfully seeing something to be true. And I see that when people are in here, they're just getting a taste of what we're pointing to. And then they go back out there, and it just seems like, everybody out there is not seeing it like this. Everybody out there hasn't had the gift maybe of being able to hear this. And so they get straight, they're pulled back into the outside in setup, the outside in belief system. So there's something about, somebody said to me once, one of the most terrifying days of their life is going into a treatment center. That walking through the door, that surrendering, that giving up their best friend, whatever that drug of choice or whatever that habit or addiction is. And somebody else said, yeah, but you know, the second most nervous day is the day you walk out the door. And you're back out there. Now, if somebody has been able to get a sense of what we would call the oneness of life, you know, if people have got a sense that they're not alone in their physical being, in their physical body, of course, you know, that they're seen as a separate entity. But if they have been able to see that they've got this invisible power inside of them, if they've been able to get a glimpse that they have wisdom, just always sort of, you know, talking to them from the inside, sat on their shoulder to just guide them and nudge them. If they've got a hint that they really get to see the illusion of fear, if they can get just a taste that they're okay, no matter what, in the gift of experience. If they've just had even just a tiniest grasp, for me, that's enough to just get them over what might seem like the moment we go back out there in that kind of first hurdle. Because as human beings, we're really, really good at giving labels to people. We're really, really good at putting people in boxes, and we're really, really good at creating reputations. So if people have been visiting, you know, the treatment center here where I work, that, you know, they're here for a reason. They're here because something wasn't tickety-boo in their world. People don't come in here just for a holiday. They might do second time around just because they've got to know us and love us and come for a top up. But normally when they first come in, their life has either been unmanageable, or they are stuck in something that they can't get themselves out of. Otherwise they wouldn't be here in the first place. And so, you know, they're going back out there. Now, chances are that they have not been the best that they can be. Chances are that they haven't been the best employer or employee, or the best husband or wife, or mum or dad or daughter or son, or whatever it is, partner. You know, they've been acting out. So when they leave here, they've got their own, probably, you know, and hopefully not too much if they've been able to get a good grasp of what we're pointing to. Hopefully not with too many of their own fears, or their own nervousness, or their own doubts, or their own insecurities. But they're quite often going back into families or workplaces or communities where people may already have them, you know, written off, or people they've already got a few black marks against their name. And so it's, you know, so it's one thing us sort of seeing the light inside of them. And I think that, I mean, you know, I'd love to hear very soon from anybody else that's on the call, anybody else that's has had the experience of being in and out of a recovery center. But it's great that we get to see, we get to start again. We've got you know, the most amazing thing of understanding how the human experience is created, that we get to see we've got a fresh start every single moment. Because that's the beautiful default system of, you know, default settings of our thinking system. But not everybody else that sees there. So you know, what I hear again and again is, like, you know, people go out and they're surrounded by the fear of their own partners, who are just waiting for them to relapse again, waiting to see if there's this reform of character. You know, so it takes, you know, there's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of that inner strength to come out, for people to see they're okay, no matter what anybody else might think of them. And they get to see that, of course, people are going to be suspicious. Of course, people are going to be waiting to see how they behave. Of course, people are, and maybe even sort of, you know, holding on a white knuckling it themselves. That's the families, you know. You know, this time is you know, this time, what's different this time? And so as much as we can, just or for me anyway, when people leave, I always like to be here. I'm admissions manager here, and I always like to try and be here when people show up for that first time, because you know what, I can give them a hug, right? That's how I greet them. Just give them a big hug, and we start from there, and they are welcomed in, just welcomed into that house of love. And when they go back out, just to really, I love to be that one to wave them off. It's not always possible, right? But just, to remind them that we're always with them. We're always with them. That's just how it works. We can point them towards that non-separation. Now that might just be too deep and meaningful for a lot of people. That's just that might not happen on the first visit into recovery. We can go as deep as we can go. We can go as deep as people will allow. We suffer, don't we, in resistance, human beings. So if somebody is quite resistant to the direction that we're pointing them in, sometimes I think it's just very lightly, just pointing them in the direction of truth. They'll either just, we're just sowing seeds. And if at any moment they can remember that conversation that we had while we took a walk along the beach, or that workshop that we did on innate resilience or innate well-being, if that pause can just happen, where they don't see thought as an instruction, where they've just had enough of a taste that there's this sort of pause before they go into their old habits. That's good enough.
And also, Amanda, they'll often, one thing I've noticed is if there is a friendly or loving environment, you're allowing people to grow at their own pace. They're not, we have ideas of what we want to achieve, all of which are ridiculous because it's not in our hands. But in that loving environment, people naturally get what they need. And then when they step away from your program, it may be 2 or 3 years where the penny might drop. But the point is they're already heading in a positive direction. And if the program is too serious, which I have seen a tremendous amount, then it's more like an intellectual grasping of concepts. And what you're emphasizing is the feeling, the loving feeling. And that's the only environment that really can be successful in a recovery program. And then when they step out, they're stepping out of that bubble of love into this cruel world. And the two things I've noticed is there was a mother who had alcoholic sons, and she was feeling guilty. And when she realized she didn't have to feel guilty, and actually it was a blessing what was happening, she herself was then able to support her sons, where before all she was doing was, when you have that word, you use the word fear. When you have that fear or that label that you're looking at people with, there's no chance for you to help or support that person. And that's really, really, really important. And the other one I've seen is boyfriend, girlfriend, where they're both addicted and they're afraid to go back. They want to see their girlfriend, in this case, their girlfriend, but they know she'll drag him back into the scenario of the cycle that he wants to stay away from. And without a proper understanding of what you're walking into, I don't think it's the same way when you go from college into the real world. It's totally different than you expected. It's actually quite cruel in many ways, or tough. And so those soft, loving transitions and with an understanding can really make a huge difference to the long-term success. And of course, we have to be patient with our clients as well. It's obvious that it's their journey, and it's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy, right, for people. It's really, it's, you know, it's not easy for them coming into treatment in the first place. I deal with people who have lost everything. You know, they've lost their business, they've lost their house, they've lost their car, they've lost their respect, they've lost their wife, the children aren't talking to them. You know, it's often quite atypical that people really have you know, lost everything. So often people are coming back, you know, going back out to something different, to some, you know, so for the first time, they're not going back to the family home. Like, this has been it. That they've burnt their bridges. They've burnt their bridges. They've really pushed their luck. And so there's that kind of, well, now what? You know, now what? And so that's a big one, right? That's a big one. But we get that phone call again then, you know, when people go and see people, I think the families maybe sometimes out there, or the girlfriends, or the need to see. It is very different, I think, if they're going back to people who have an understanding of addiction and an understanding. But if that's not the case, it's really wonderful when the families notice themselves, wow. In fact, you know, they're much happier, much nicer than they ever were before.
Do you work with a family? Like, could you give us a few examples? I still don't understand how you're supporting in a different way than.
So we do different things here. We do a couple of different things. We actually allow couples to come in as well, which is something which is quite unusual. I don't know if in any other treatment centers that happens, but often you might have two people, for example, drinking, and the idea of one of them giving up without the other one, and they've never, you know, they've never really spent much time apart from each other, or never. So that is something that we do here, and we've had about 5 couples in this past year come in together and do the program, and we try and give them separate therapist or whatever. That's been really interesting how that works. But often we might have, so what we do is that we bring in the families from the beginning, if that's how it works, or so families often might come as well and stay locally to us, rent an apartment. We've got that going on at the moment, or in a hotel. And they will come in and they will have their own sessions. They're invited to some of the workshops, and then there will be more like maybe mother and daughter sessions, or couple sessions, or however it works. But so they're sort of bringing them in so that they get a sense or an idea of what they've been pointed towards. And I always say to our clients, you know, this is not about, like, often I get people sort of saying this is about, you know, they just want to go out and they want all their family to hear this, because they're like, oh, you know, I haven't got the problem. Actually, my families have got the problem. If my families could just hear this, then, it's going to be amazing. And I say, yeah, that would be true if your family, you know, gets to hear this. But actually, the only person that needs to hear this is you. That's the only person that needs to hear this. But of course it's easier. It's easier for me. My home life is much easier that my daughter's got a sense of this. Because, you know, if I'm having a moment where my mood has dropped and I get caught up in my own thinking and I get caught up in myself, it's really easy when my daughter kind of says to me, you know, get over yourself. That's what she says. And thank you. Yeah. It's so much easier if there's somebody else in the house, right? It's great. You know, that's great. But quite often that's not the case, is it? That's not the case. But the only person that really, really needs to hear it is me, or is you. That's the only person that needs to have a sense of it. So we do that. We do bring, the families are very welcomed in, and we also we allow families to bring people in. So quite often a family member will come and might stay a couple of nights, if that's just the way it is, just to settle people and they feel settled. So we seem to be a lot more looser with our sort of conditions, you know. We also allow people to come and visit. So if people are in here for a long time, we often have people in there 2 months, 3 months. We've had 5 months, 8 months. Then, you know, their wives or a friend or whatever. We had at Christmas, you know, the Christmas before last, I think everybody who was in there here, their partners came and spent Christmas with us too for a few days. And so it's, I guess where we run it more from it's more like a family. That's how it feels for me. There's something about that, you know, we laugh a lot here. You know, we laugh and cry together, but we laugh a lot. Around the table, I hear people saying, Amanda, I don't remember the last time I laughed. I haven't laughed this much. And there's something about, I suppose I speak to a lot of the family members. And I also do get to see as well, actually, what's really interesting for me, I do get to see how apparently difficult a lot of the family members appear.
Absolutely.
But they're coming from their own misunderstanding. Now, if people can get a gist of that, you know, I often do, like I call it a difficult people work, you know, workshop or something, just so we start to see. And often people have got a big list of the difficult people in their worlds. But by the time people leave, if they get to see, oh, maybe there aren't difficult people. Maybe they're just people in and acting out in their own behaviors from their sort of where their thinking is at, where their level of consciousness is at, where their understanding of how it works. There's something that people, I mean, that's like any program, isn't it? I mean, any program that I've seen in addiction, really, you know, including the 12-step program, is about people realizing their resentments and letting go of their resentments, and seeing that the only person that really suffers with those is us. Yeah, is us. We're the ones who suffer. And you know, I love to say to people, you know, you've suffered enough. You've suffered enough. If you could get a hint again that you've created, that's a hard one to take on board. You know, and that's why I love residential care. I love residential programs, because when we're pointing people to how we create our own experience, and we get to see that there's no one to blame anymore. So we spent I see that a lot in addiction. I see shame, and I see blame, and I see guilt, and I see those things come up again and again and again. And so people stop pointing the finger out there and blaming. But it's not helpful if they start blaming themselves. That's not the idea. And what's so lovely is we can drop seeds in here because people are safe, and we don't have to, you know, get it all out in one session. We don't have to, you know, we can have another little chat that night. We can have another little chat the next morning. We've talked about that, but we can have a little chat just over breakfast, or a little chat here. It's that you know, it's a wonderful way to not have the pressure to try and get, you know, end a session. There's nothing worse for me than working with somebody on a time scale where I've only got an hour and a half, and I'm not going to be able to see them again for a week or whatever it might be. Yeah, it's wonderful. I love that with residential care. That people then are not taking mind-altering substances. They have no access here to mind-altering substances. So we are sharing an understanding, which for the first time for many people, or for a long time, they might be in a place of clarity, of some kind of clarity, even if that's clarity just from mind-altering substances for now. You know, and then we've got the clarity behind our own personal thinking. But there's like layers, isn't there? There's layers and layers and layers. So first of all, you know, we've removed that. Like you said, we've removed, let's say, for example, the drinking. And now we're left with the thinking. Well, we can have as as much confused thinking as there's a lot of people that drink or use, and they're in more clarity than people that don't drink or use, because their personal thinking is completely. There's a lot of addictions out there, right? People are addicted to worry. People are addicted to criticism. People are addicted to controlling. It's not just substances that we're addicted to. We're addicted to our patterns, habitual thought patterns. They're the ones that, so we all know that. We know, right, we can take that away. I mean, that's kind of, that's step one, really. Now we've got layer upon layer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm saying the same, I'm saying the same thing, really, whether I'm speaking to the guest who is in here, who's actually going through our program, whether they're in here for executive stress burnout, or whether they're in here for a heroin or crack cocaine kind of substance misuse. It's the same thing. It's the same thing if I'm talking to a group of businessmen. It's the same thing if I'm talking to a group of school teachers. What I do here, I'm sharing this understanding because that is the only thing that makes sense to me now. For me, it's the best relapse prevention.
One of the things I hear, which was something that struck me, was when I started handing out my book or stuff, I suddenly realized, well, people take this as a serious topic. I understand that there's a serious issue to it, but I myself have never looked at it as something that is a heavy, serious topic. I see it more as an evolution of life, and this is the way they've emanated or expressed it. And so I actually have an extreme, like what you're talking about, laughing, and I have a very light feeling towards addiction. And then I suddenly realize, oh, people are taking this very, very seriously. That this is, and it kind of shocked me to experience that, and a feeling I have as they leave, if they don't take it so seriously, they're going to have a lot easier time out there in the world, even though everybody else is going to be taking it very seriously. And that's the same thing I saw in the 12-step program. They're taking it very seriously, this problem, and they've identified this thing. But I just, if you are free to catch the feeling of addiction, it actually is no different, as you expressed, than any other addiction we have out there. And
it's exhausting.
So I wonder if we could get a few comments from a few people now. Tim, how did you see what she was talking about?
I like how she talked about addicted to the habits and stuff, like the patterns, definitely. It's hard for me to exactly describe it. Like going to AA meetings, they are real serious. And from my experience, I try to make friends with people in AA. Like I'd call them outside of AA. And I just call to talk, and they're like, oh, what's wrong? Everything okay? And I don't know, just kind of, I accept them for what they do and how they are and all that.
No, that's positive. You, of course, have to accept them for who they are and what they're offering. And we know they are helping certain people at different stages of their evolvement. That's only positive. It just, we're trying here to see the ultimate answer to helping people in an area which has inconsistent results, Tim.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I find that just like being present for me, like taking time out and to listen to somebody is helpful. I've been in rehab and they took away, a lot of stuff, cell phones. You could only have a limited number of clothes. They were really against like relationships and all that, and which I guess is okay. But I like how she was talking about how her program works and talking with the family and stuff. I think that'd be very good.
Thank you, Tim.
So I kind of look at it like explaining an imaginary monster in the dark to a child, and you cannot turn the light on. You can tell the child where the light switch is, but they have to turn the light on for themselves to see what's really there. And as long as that stays dark, it looks like there's a monster in the corner. But as soon as they turn the light on for themselves, they'll see it's just a coat hanging on a chair or whatever it is that's making the shape. And it's the same type of idea. There's this seriousness to it. There's a monster in the corner. Look, I can see it right there. Look at it. I see a head. I clearly see the shape of a monster. So I get why there's that seriousness to it. But as soon as they turn the light on, as soon as they can see clearly, that seriousness just goes away. And there's a beauty to it. It's like, wow, the light's on now. I can see it's just a chair and a coat. There's nothing to be afraid of. But as long as people are stuck in the dark, it looks very scary and it looks very serious. So it makes sense why there's so much seriousness around it, because most people don't see what's really there. They see an addictive behavior and think that's the problem. But that behavior is a solution to the problem, which is, like you said, it's a habitual thought pattern. That's all it is. You know, we've tried to escape a feeling that we don't like to have, and whatever we use to do that becomes the symptom. It's not really the problem. It's part of the solution. It's not a very good one, and it's not sustainable. but at least for a time, it gives a little bit of relief. If somebody goes out and gets really drunk tonight, at least for a few hours, they're not in their head and all that thinking. It doesn't feel so heavy and scary, you know?
Yeah.
So the seriousness is there because of that simple misunderstanding of what the real problem is. And once you see that it's just a coat and a chair, it doesn't look so scary anymore.
And there's something about that, isn't there? There's something about, you know, when that flame that's inside of them, you know, as long as we can sort of see that, and if that can just get, if that can just sort of burst into flame again, you know, if that can just sort of relight my fire, you know, when that happens, when people get to see, it's not that they can't do anything, they just can't do that. You know, if your body's become addicted to alcohol, like physically, like an allergy, or your body's been, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to take mind-altering substances anymore. When we get to see, that's the only thing that we don't do. We can do all the other stuff. You know, we can do all the other stuff. There's something so wonderful when you see somebody come back into life, tasting food, seeing color, becoming aware of just music, or I don't know, whatever it is. Really simple things. I've got 2 dogs, and I live just down the road from the treatment centre, so we're not allowed to have the dogs here in the house, which is a real shame, but that's just part of our licensing. So we all go, you know, everybody's welcome to come. I walk my dogs twice a day, and anybody's welcome to come with me. Just going to walk the dogs. It sounds so simple, but that's where it just, you know, that's just where stuff happens, right? Patting the dog, getting that love again, feeling that love.
It's always that, Amanda, in every aspect of, for all our lives. That's all there is. You're either going to more love or you're walking away from love. There's nothing else in life and when we're walking towards love, we feel it. And of course, we're seeing things from a different perspective than when we're mired in a lower mood, a psychological word for the feeling and stuff. And one of the things when Greg was talking about, I'm sorry to switch a little, but about the monster in the room, one of the things I've noted is with family is when they see the monster, that's what they're experiencing. And then they make up a story because they can't deal with it. They can't handle the monster. It's too scary for them. So then they make up a belief system that they really hold on to because they need something to hold on to. And the problem is the belief system is not truth, it's a lie. But they're holding on to it with all their might. And then they can't hear anything outside of that because they need something to, that's how they deal with, how humans out there deal with fear, is to create a belief system that they can hold on to, type of thing. And when people catch this loving feeling that you're talking about, it's like a bomb that washes over them, and all of a sudden they realize they don't have to feel afraid.
And that can be too much at first, you know. I see that a lot. Sometimes it's just, if we've been really acting out and we haven't been I don't know, on our best behavior, and we've been told, oh, what's wrong with you, and you know, you're bad, and you're this, and why can't you get your life together, and if we've had to do whatever we've had to do to survive when we're caught up in our own madness, then we're very you know, it's easy for us to get into that character of being very shifty and being very shady and not trusting anybody. And if you're caught up in that world where everybody is in a survival mode, you know, and needs to, whatever it is, have their own money to supply their own drugs or do whatever they've got to do to get their own, you know, you're in a world where you're a bit suspicious, and then somebody comes along who's all love and peace and whatever, and it can be a bit too much, you know. So sometimes if somebody is in a really low place, is that the last one they want to see is, oh, happy clappy over here, you know, who's it's just it's so that's, yeah, I have to be more sensitive to that sometimes too. You know, like, oh, all they need is love. All they need is love. You know, sometimes they just need space. Or sometimes they just need, you know, and so going back out, as what we're talking about tonight is, you know, sort of leaving a treatment center. What I've had the experience of is people have come in here and people have really got a sense of, oh my goodness, this is like life-changing, and oh, I can't wait to get back out there. You know, I can't wait to get back out there, and sort of, I hear the words, they go, put it into practice. You know, it's like, well, there's not really a practice, but it's just, yeah, go out there and watch it unfold. And quite often people go back and they're now alien to their families or their friends or whatever. Is that they go out and they're too happy. People don't like it. Their families don't like it.
Yeah, I actually am dealing with exactly what you said with yeah, a lot of the stuff, because I'm excited like to go to a meeting or whatever and meet people, and I'm like that happy go lucky guy that, you know, I guess it's the last person some people want to see when they're stuck in that misery or whatever.
Yeah.
I also have a family member that, like, we had a talk and she was talking about, like, she's serious about AA and all that. And she just kind of was very careful on how she was talking to me about, she's like, I see this pattern developing. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. You know, I kind of said I'm in a low mood. I don't know. Yeah, that was good what you just said.
Yeah. So,
one other comment that Harry said, if I may, and your thoughts are so self-validating. You walk around with a negative thought, you'll prove it. It'll come, you know. The old Archie Bunker, All in the Family, he always, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the old thing, and he'd argue about a woman's liver, and she's, you know, she's right in front of him, and yeah, he does this and that, and of course the woman's getting real mad, and they say, oh no, all they do is like to argue, and of course the woman would say something back to him and said, see, that's exactly what I'm saying. they're argumentative. You know what I mean? So he set up the situation to prove his own thought by using a negative thought, which would get the person going. So yeah, it's interesting, and it's just a funny catch that we get ourselves into, you know, that we don't really, you know, quite understand. But I like the real positivity that you know that you possess, which is great. And sometimes it is a little bit overwhelming if someone is, you know, in such a state of mind. I worked with spinal cord injury, and of course, that's really a turnaround in a life where someone is completely active and, you know, and doing very well, and all of a sudden they're paralyzed and everything that goes along with it. And of course, I always, you know, stayed positive. I enjoyed what I did and whatnot, but eventually that positivity would get through. Some people would say, geez, you're happy all the time. And I said, no, I'm not happy all the time. I kind of understand how it works, but it would transcend to that patient or whatever. At least you were setting up something where it could happen. And for me, I didn't always talk about the principles directly, you know, because when I was starting out with it, and I remember joking with one patient, and then all of a sudden he got kind of upset, and I go, oh, I came back. I said, you know what? I really want to apologize. I said, I didn't mean to step over the line. He said, Scott, don't worry. He said, I'm just in a low mood. And there he picked it up and came right back. He had, you know, learned that. But I was sensitive to that, you know, that I didn't go over. And I'm saying this just for myself. It was just an interesting learning experience because you're learning constantly. I mean, that's I couldn't wait to go to work to learn, you know, and then to be a better therapist, better person, and trying to make that transition from being paralyzed, since the outcomes weren't, you know, still aren't the greatest, to that adjustment. In fact, it almost seemed that was more important than the physical therapy I did, you know, in a sense. But yeah, I like that, Amanda. I love what you did with the hug, and I think that's really neat.
Yeah, and they, thank you, Scott. There's also, you know, I think there's so much emphasis on, like relapse prevention, and the fear of picking up again. Whereas, if people just go out and they go out and do the best that they can do, you know, and don't have so much. I think that's because we come more from a health model. It's not, you know, so much emphasis on there's not so much emphasis. We're not only teaching people about, sorry, let me start again. We're talking about all thoughts. So, you know, most people that are pointing in this direction who are working in recovery, I'd imagine we're talking about thought as a general. We're not focusing only on the using thoughts or the picking up thoughts. So when I think that's so super helpful, that when people have that more of an understanding of how thought works, the moment that it's just I need to pick up, or I need to score, or I need a drink, or I need to whatever it is, they get to see it like, oh yeah, they get to see, oh yeah, that's my thought playing out again. So there's not so much resistance to that thought. And if people can be reminded of that as they sort of walk out the door, if people can be reminded of all of those little seeds, I just think it, you know, there's only so much we can do as well. And I think that's what's so great, because we don't have fear of whether they're going to pick up or not pick up, because we see that's experience, and it's not a reflection on me, just as their previous behavior hasn't been a reflection on who they truly are. What people do when they leave a treatment center isn't a reflection on me. It's not a reflection on whether I'm a good therapist or a bad therapist. You know, when I really get to see, when I don't put any fear or expectations on them either, I can only do the best that I can do in the moment. I can only share that, and then they can just do the best that they can when they go back out there. So we're trying to kind of, I think that's helpful, isn't it? When there's not so much expectation and fear, because otherwise it's like, we're back to that, oh, are you good or did you relapse? Or what I see, like, you know, or sort of, I think what Tim just sort of said, you know, there's that phone call. Oh no, someone's calling me. We just have phone calls normally. So as part of our aftercare program as well. So I probably speak with, I don't know, 200, 100 people every month or something. You're just checking in, how you doing? Not have you had a drink? Did you use? It's not like that. Have you gambled? Just how you doing? But when you've had a really good rapport with people, then it's genuine. You're not just calling up to see, oh, are they going to come back in because they've relapsed? No, you genuinely care. How they doing?
You're treating them on an equal basis. When I went into my daughter's grade 2 class, she asked me to come in to help with a few kids and so on. The first thing I noticed was that all the kids started talking to me like adult to adult. And all the teachers were talking down to the kids or identifying them with their label. And I was just talking to them, and immediately we had these conversations. And those conversations were certainly lifted my understanding of what it is to treat a kid, which is treat them like yourself and be yourself with them. And we're the more ordinary we have our conversations with people, the more comfortable they're going to feel. If they feel they're in a this upper lower scenario, they're always going to be guarded no matter what, even if you're exceptionally good at what you're doing. Because the answer is not we know the answer. The answer is it's a spiritual reality. We're both gaining love or understanding in the moment. They're lifting you up as much as you're lifting them up. And if it's any different, then you're not a good counselor.
And also that I found what happens, you might be, and again, I'm not a counselor, though, getting people with injuries, it's just so encompassing, the physical and the mental, is that a lot of times when they pick this up, and sometimes you don't even know it at the time, because it's so strong, because it's coming from them, that I've already known of a person that had a drinking problem, never knew that he had a drinking problem, whatever, but it just went away without anybody even saying anything about it. It wasn't even addressed because there was so much emphasis on what was going on physiologically, but when they picked up and on some level they knew that it was coming from them, it disappeared on its own, which was amazing. Because I would find this later on and they said, oh yeah, I mean, because one thing that I liked, it was spinal cord therapy is a long therapy, and I got to know the people, and the way the Veterans Hospital was set up, which I really liked. I knew them over years, and had a nice personal relationship with them, which I liked as a therapist. I didn't mind the slow progression or whatnot, but it's just interesting because when as you're picking up and you're understanding the three principles, you don't know how many roadblocks you've gone around because they're not a roadblock. You know what I'm saying? You don't know how well you've done. Your life becomes easier and stuff. But I missed this, I missed that. But there's no way of proving it. Your life becomes better, and you don't. You're not running into things that you normally would have prior to understanding this.
Excuse me for a sec, Scott, one of the first experiences we had on the show after our first show was Chris Noonan mentioned he had stopped smoking. We had, of course, never talked about any of that subject, but just whatever it was that came into him healed that aspect of who he is. And I suddenly felt, oh, this is really, like, it's nice to have people listening, but if people are actually, the spiritual power of what's being shared is actually working invisibly, that's very, very, that was heart-rending to me. It really changed my attitude towards what Greg and introduced here and so on. Sorry, Amanda, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say exactly to Scott, you just don't know until further down that people don't even realize that they've stopped doing something else because the focus wasn't on that thing. You know, if this was a show about smoking and stop smoking and not smoking, whatever, I wonder would that have had as much of an effect for Chris? It's because we're not talking about that. And that's what I love about this. We're not sat there all day talking about people's drinking problem or their gambling problem, or we're not talking about that. We're getting them out of their story, really, aren't we? We're getting them out of their.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I'm good. No, I'd love to hear from all of you.
What was really interesting for me, and it's just going to work, I just loved it, what I was going to learn, is that every once in a while, you know, you come on and you want to be very positive, and people are going through all types of up and down moods. And I remember this one fellow that was a paraplegic, and, you know, I'd always come in because I just love what I did, and I could tell you some of the funny stuff I would do to lighten it up, but that's another show. But anyway, I remember, and he looked at me very seriously, and he said, you know, Scott, you have no idea what it's like for me to be a paraplegic. So right away, my little monkey mind started going, and I started to go down a little bit. I go, because I'm picturing this stuff, I'm picturing this terrible scenario, you know, in my head. And then it hit me. Now, this is only happening in real time in a couple seconds. And the truth hit me. And I said to him, you know what? I have no idea what it's like. I mean, I have my own idea what it's like for you to be a paraplegic. I said, I don't. But I know you can be happy, and I know that. And he lightened up. I mean, it was just great because I felt a little uncomfortable at what I was going to say next, even though I've seen people just really, from spinal cord injury, just do amazing things, you know, and live what you want to call a normal life, or actually more of an exceptional life. So it was just really great that, and these are things too, and that whether you're the one helping somebody or being helped, it's just nice to know that it works the same way. You know, it works the same way, and it was just, well, it was just really a nice thing. Because you try to help, but you don't want to. I didn't want to make it any worse or whatever. But it was just really neat how it came to me to say that, and you could see him just relax. It hit him. The truth hit him, and he did well. He did well after that. You know, he just went on. But anyway.
I'd like to, can I just mention, you know, talking about the sort of tonight's show as the journey begins, you know, on the day you sort of, that you leave a treatment, you know, the journey begins when you leave a treatment center, sort of thing. I think because the journey's re-beginning every moment, isn't it? You know, and I think that people are so used to trying to come in. What people believe they're coming in for is to collect a lot of tools and techniques to go back out, and that makes them feel powerful and ready and equipped. But actually going back out when, you know, on this journey, which is a journey of discovery, isn't it? They've discovered who they truly are, and it doesn't matter whether if they've picked up some tools and techniques and things that work for them. That's great, right? That's great. I think because what we do here, because what we all do, you know, anybody who is sharing this sort of understanding, is we're pointing people that they're not okay because they just have to do those particular tools or techniques. If that particular technique makes sense to you to do, great, do more of it. But there's something about when we've given people, or not given, when they've given themselves, because they've listened, right? When they've given themselves the gift of seeing, that the journey begins in a very different way, because suddenly they realize they've got absolutely everything they need inside of them. They don't need a plan. And that's the biggest gift. They don't need to have a plan. I mean, we always, you know, we'd always offer, wouldn't we? Would you know, call me, you know, like you would to anybody, to any friend or anybody or your children. Yeah, if you need me, call me, you know. I'm here. But that's that, even though it feels like the journey begins, because as I just, something popped into my head, I don't know what it was that you said, Scott, but what I just heard in our own even title, The Journey Begins When You Leave, as if that's sort of like the hard work begins when you leave. You know, that this journey, as if this is a journey of whatever. But this is, the journey begins when you leave. For me, a bit like what Tim said, it's quite exciting. If we can be excited in a calm way, there's something there. The journey doesn't mean it's difficult. Or maybe, I don't know, I just saw that right now. That's what I just saw. That this journey, as if that's the part, as if that's the hard part. Sometimes we're talking that way. No, the journey begins because you're entering what might be an unknown. I don't know if what I call excitement is what other people call nerves. I've often wondered that.
No, it's different. It's like, suppose you're playing a big match in sport. You're naturally going to have a heightened level of consciousness or heightened level of excitement. But that's not nerves. That's just normal. That's actually getting you, bringing your A game. If you can't bring your C game, if you're playing a championship game, you have to play. So that actually is a lift. Nerves is a down. And that is not healthy. And that's why they always emphasize in sport, calm down. But excitement or passion, use the word passion. You have a passion for something, that's a lift. I love my passion for life and for what I'm doing. And it lifts me, it makes me who I am. That's a totally different type of feeling. And it's a little bit like people talk about, there's good stress and bad stress. There's no good stress and bad stress. It's just stress or nerves, you know. And so
There is something about that, yeah. And something about passion, isn't there? That's the thing, I think, when what I see is people have lost their passion often when they
that's very, even though simple, that's very astute. Go ahead, talk more about that.
Because that's all it is. It's there's something about when people say to me, oh, Amanda, it's infectious being around you, or there's something, you know, they're not passionate about what I'm passionate about. They're just attracted to the passion. And if that's enough, you know, if we can just, all we have to be is be ourselves. That's all we have to be, is be ourselves. And if that passion awakes a little bit of passion in them, doesn't matter what it's about, just passion to stay alive, or passion to see their kids again, or passion to pat their dog again, or, you know, passions, that's the key, right, to enliven the passion. Oh, I think we've got a question. Yay!
Yeah, it was lovely to hear you. I heard a lot of planting seeds, and people seem to be so welcome when they arrive, and like it seems to me like you make them feel comfortable with who they are, and taking that out back into life, feeling quite okay with your flaws, and like being okay with who you are, actually takes a lot of stress away around everything, I suppose. Coming from that, yeah, maybe I relapse or whatever, but yeah, so what? I'm human, and we are okay with who we are. And it's get a feeling of the welcoming atmosphere, and you're okay with who you are, and they seem to be okay with who they are more and more. And just realize that is a gift.
And there's something about that, isn't it? Is it Tom or Thomas?
Yeah, Thomas.
Thomas, there's something about, I think,
Vi får vänta lite, Rickard.
you know, when people get to, I don't know, you nudge people to be the best that they can be, whatever that is, but be the best that they can be in the moment. Because I think often what we've seen is, especially if we've been caught up with mind-altering substances and drugs and bad behaviors, we haven't been living at our full capacity. We just haven't been. And so, you know, so the passion just dries, doesn't it? But we get that aliveness again. You know, I've got a you know, kid in here at the moment who's been playing the piano. He's never played the piano before. He learned to play the piano in here. He's like become this sort of master, you know, within a very short period of time. That passion just for music or something to be released. The focus is taken away on not on what they can't do, but what they can do.
And one of the things with the three principles that I heard from Sid is when you go inside, you become a genius. So what we have been before we've experienced the three principles, or what we experience the truth on a deeper level, is this becomes quieter. Obviously, the only thing that restricts us from being more than who we are is this thing here. And as that quiets down, geniuses start to come out because of what you're talking about, Amanda. You automatically, passion isn't something that you do. Passion is something that you feel from the inside out, and it automatically comes out. And all of a sudden, you find all these hidden talents and new ways of learning. So what used to take 2 weeks takes a few minutes because you're not thinking about it. And this genius starts to come out. And these people that you're working with, a lot of them are amazingly, incredibly talented people. They're on the edge of geniusness, and they've experienced altered states of reality that we haven't. And that is a good thing. No offense, but it is a good thing. Some of the stuff that Greg experienced when he was heavily into alcohol, it helped expand his consciousness. Not all of it was destructive and ugly and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So the genius in human beings, we don't know. You're dealing with Amanda, but maybe Thomas is just 1 inch away to that genius that comes out. And we have seen that in the three principle movement, where ordinary people who have done, so nice life, got money, but that's not what sustained them. What sustained them was they started to touch into their own personal power.
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Thomas, for for seeing that or feeling that. Something touches us, doesn't it? Even just having this conversation. We have these conversations. It makes me, I want to go live. Go live. See the gift and aliveness. That's it.
And that is a lot of times the best thing we can do. Is just go out and live our lives with this understanding and let other people see how we handle life. When we're smiling while everybody else is upset, and stuff like that, people start getting curious.
Yeah. That's exactly it, Greg. I think other people have had, there's something about as well that's kind of cool when you're in a treatment center and you do sort of stuff in groups, don't you? So either that you're eating together or that you're, I don't know, it might be a group workshop or a group activity. There's something about when the emphasis isn't on you. So you're acting more like the observer or the fly on the wall. Whereas if you've been the one, maybe, I don't know, in what's been going on in your world, but everybody's looking at you, or they're monitoring your behavior, or you're under the spotlight in your family, in your relationship. But suddenly you can learn a lot by seeing other people sort of have conversations. and there is definitely something about, I see that people often have their kind of insights, not when we've been talking about them, not when I'm on a one-to-one with them, but when they're in a group and they have witnessed maybe somebody trying to give out to me, or somebody trying to, complain or moan or whatever, and they say, I don't know how you could just, they say to me, there's no way I could have sat there and listened like you did, or not retaliated, or not, and it's like, well, it just, what good would that have done? It wouldn't have helped, would it? And they've learned more from being that kind of third, the eyes on the wall. They've learned more by being the fly on the wall kind of thing. They get to see in here, that they get to see like how, like you said, we're just acting now and behaving now what makes sense to us. Like, we're not getting caught up in the drama. I see so much drama when people first come into the recovery center. Like the addicted lifestyle is quite dramatic. Everything's dramatic. And then the drama starts to just disappear.
And the peace and quiet produces reflective experiences in people inside themselves. It's a quiet world. It's not it's not a noisy world, and the quietness of all things produces the passion. It's that we experience more and more quiet, and we become more passionate in our life. I love that. And let's just live. I love that. So maybe this would be a good point. Or you have something more to add?
Has anybody just got any questions? Is there anybody that sort of came to tonight's, I don't know, how much time have we got left? Have we got a couple of minutes, Greg, or is our time?
But we have as much time as you want.
Okay, has anybody come to the webinar? I'd love to hear from anybody that would love to just say hello, or did anybody got any question that any of us could throw some light on?
I'd love to ask a question.
Hi, Jason.
Hi. Cool. I'm been around 12-step recovery for a long time, and been following the principles for a couple of years, doing Super Coach Academy, and I can see how much it's changed my own life, and a lot of the people that I've worked with are really having a lot of change. But so one of the questions I got asked a lot, and which I don't know the answer to really, I just haven't seen it yet, is like, what about the physical compulsion? What about abstinence? Because I caught some of Joe Bailey's speech last week, and I think he said something like, some people just open the floodgates when they drink, and some people are okay with it, and I guess what I heard from what you were saying is, it's like the wisdom's just there, like to know whether it's the right thing to do or not, and I guess I wondered, from your treatment center's perspective, do you promote abstinence? And I understand that you don't, like, as soon as somebody relapses, you don't go, oh my God, it's all over now, it's kind of like, you've got to start again, back to step one. But like, how do you approach that? And I guess to be more specific, the other question is about the physical compulsion, that people talk of, that's been, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's been installed into me for 25 years of recovery. That once you start, you can't stop because you have a physical reaction to alcohol or chemicals.
I think, Jason, no different. I mean, we run an abstinence program, and we still talk about, I mean, the center that we call ourselves a holistic center. So there's my boss is a staunch AA guy. He got well in AA. He loves AA. He says the 12-step program is, the only program. That's how it works for him. His recovery is safe in that understanding, and he doesn't have any desire to listen to anything else because he's good. And I really respect that, and I see that, and that works for him. So that's cool. What he does see is that doesn't work for everybody. So even though that's his belief system and that's the only place that he can talk from, he also sees that there's a lot of people who have all already kind of put their hand up to that because they've tried it, didn't work, or tried it, didn't work, tried it, didn't work. So I feel very lucky that I was allowed to share what I share in here, because that's not the norm. But we still run under, I mean, it's a program of abstinence. We still talk about addiction begins and ends in the brain, because what we're pointing to when we talk about thought, we're talking about something that happens before the brain. You know, when my brain believes a thought to be true, then it runs with that, and it's so powerful, and there's physical changes happening in the body. I don't see that here anyway, the way we work, it's an abstinence program. I mean, people got to go out and do their own market research. People got to go out and do their own, work it out for them. If whatever feels right for them. If they are what I would call a true alcoholic, or if they're whatever, it will only be a matter of days or weeks before they're back to where they were, and they will work it out for themselves, or they won't. So I don't think there's any difference there in what I would hear from other treatment centers, but I don't know if we create the panic around like this is what I love to work. So I let the other counselors here do that. They work more on the addiction stuff, So people still need to hear and the physiological, what happens, and we watch lots of videos and we do all sorts of workshops. But so I don't think anybody's arguing that it doesn't make sense to not do that anymore, to not drink or not to use or whatever it is. But there's something about, if people can get an understanding who they are and what they're about and how amazing their life can be, it's just great when it just doesn't make sense to drink anymore or use anymore, because it doesn't make sense.
But that's not his question, Amanda. His question is the physical urge he's experiencing, and how does that work?
So if you're talking about cravings, or you're talking about, so we run, here we still run, so we talk about that. So we do. It's not that we don't talk about that, but I don't focus on that here. I let the other guys work on that. So we're complementing anything else that you would hear in a treatment center. I don't think that we're going greatly against anything else that we hear people saying. But if people are getting a different, coming from a different direction. So for me, it's still back to, it's a thought. So there is that fit that, we can talk about cravings, we can talk about urges, but they've all come from a thought, at some point that's come from a thought base. The more that somebody understands how thought works, the more we catch it, or the more that we pause. Now, I don't know how long it takes for a thought like that to pass, for a craving. In here, one of our counselors talks about 7 minutes. If people could see that the thought is not an instruction, if people can see that will pass, if they're able to be able to understand more about how it works, the mechanics, what I would describe the mechanics of the mind. So that fit, of course it's real for them. If that's what they're thinking, then it's going to come across like a real urge and a real craving. I don't think that I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk on that. So I don't when I'm here. I let the other guys do that. But having an understanding of how thought is created alongside having that sort of explanation just seems to be more helpful for people. Because that's what I've heard time and time again. We have people in here been 10 years in recovery, or they've been in 14 different treatments, and they said they have never heard this. They've never heard this in the world of traditional. They haven't heard what we've been pointing to. There's bits and bobs, but there's something that seems to be like we're now pulling it all together, all of us working like this, doing these kind of calls. You know, I don't know is the answer a lot I have. I don't know. And I can only share what I know. I can't share outside of that. So these sort of calls that we're doing, we're pulling in the bits. So I'm sure, you know, whatever you know, Jason, you know, whatever your experience, you probably bring more to the table than I bring to the table. But that's all I can do is share what I see to be true, whether that's a teeny bit from my own. I really see it to be true for me.
Yeah.
And I let the others bring what they can to the table, what they see to be true, what they understand. And that's all that you can do. I mean, do you work in recovery, Jason?
I do. I work for a private rehabilitation company in the UK. But funnily enough, I do all their IT. I don't work in a treatment center, so I do work. And I think the more I've seen, the more I've seen the change in my own life, the more I've pulled away from 12-step recovery, the less I've felt like the need to identify as an addict. And, I've also been a psychodynamic therapist for 10 years, as well. And it's kind of the more I see in the principles, the less it kind of makes sense for me, to do the things that I was doing. And I guess the people that I've been working with, for years I've been working with have I can see the change in them too, as I see the change in me, but I don't tell them specifically, oh, this is not 12-step anymore. I just talk to them, like whole and, innately healthy human beings, and it's kind of I can see the effect that it's having on them without even getting into explanations about what's happening. But when they ask me questions like that, I think, well, I don't actually know the answer to that, because I haven't seen anything about that. I've just always known it to be described as a mental obsession coupled with a physical compulsion, and that addicts, as defined in a 12-step program, the real alcoholic as defined in the AA Big Book, is has a physical reaction to chemicals, And I guess I'm curious for myself because I've been clean for 25 years this year. It's kind of I started to think, wow, I wonder what that would be like. Could I do that and not and it not turn into chaos anymore? Because that's all that ever happened for me. It was I spent most of my teenage life in jail, and that's kind of so I'm really here asking because I'm just genuinely really curious, and I'd love to know if anyone has an insight or something. It's just something that I really don't know the answer to.
Jason, the person I know who understands that the most is Greg.
Yeah.
I would suggest that you have a discussion with him, the two of you, about that specific topic. To me, Greg has helped me the most in understanding that question that you have, because I come from a non-addictive background or whatever, but Greg has explained that to me in a way that has made sense, and I would really highly recommend the two of you get together and have a an hour discussion on that, and because he seems to understand that more than anybody else I've ever talked to, and Amanda's right. We're here to learn from each other. That's the whole idea. This is a community. This is not a person telling. And Amanda's right. The beauty of addiction is nobody knows all the answers. And the 3P world, we've only scratched the surface. So yeah, but this is a community of learning from each other and coming up with better understanding about that question, because that is a key question. That is definitely a key question, and one that I have probably heard over and over and over again. But again, I would say, and relating it to what Amanda says now, because did you catch the relationship between thought and that physical feeling that you had?
Yeah.
If you did, then you've garnished something also very important, because she had also a kernel of truth in regards to your question. She was very articulate about and correct about that. And So those two things, talking to Greg and catching that connection, would be the things that I would say would help you, guide you towards your self-discovery of that question.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
what I've seen on this with my experience with myself and working with others is that there is a physical component to what we're talking about here, but it's the actual true physical compulsion is rare. It may seem like it's not, because there's a lot of people who, you know, I got to have that next cigarette, I got to have that other beer, I got to have whatever. But the actual true physical compulsion on it is about as common as somebody being allergic to almonds or something else like that, where there's some kind of, especially with alcohol, where there's an enzyme missing that breaks down the alcohol into water, sugar, and carbon dioxide. And it stays as acetone a little bit longer in the body, which is it's a poisonous substance, but it's also an addictive substance. That does exist in some people, but it's a very small percentage of people who end up having a drinking problem who actually have that physical allergy to it. The vast majority of people, it's a mental obsession that feels like it's physical. Like I don't know if any of you have ever had a panic attack. I've had more than my share over my lifetime. When a panic attack comes on, that feels very physical. It really does. But it is 100% mental. It is caused by a thought that we're holding in our mind that we may not realize. Now, our bodies will respond to that thought and produce those chemicals that cause our blood to circulate faster and things like that, where we can feel like, you know, now my heart's pounding, you know, and now I'm having a harder time breathing. Oh, this panic attack thing is real. Just because there's a physical component doesn't mean that's the cause. And I find it very interesting that the people I've worked with who are fairly insistent that they not remain abstinent and I'm not talking about the people who are like, oh, I just really want to go out and get drunk and escape for the night. Talk about the people that are like, well, you know, I'm Italian, it's traditional, we have some wine with dinner, and it's really, I'd like to be able to partake in that with my family. If somebody I'm working with says they're going to do it, and I'm not talking about heroin and stuff like that. There's no good reason to use heroin and crack and all that stuff. Let's wipe that off the table. Talk about having a drink or two or something like that. So I challenge them to pay attention to when that physical craving goes away. Is it when they actually put the drink in them? Is it when they order the drink? Is it when it's in their hand? Is it when they put it to their lips? At what point do they start feeling better? And every single person has come back to me and said, I felt better as soon as it was in my hand. It had nothing to do with it actually being in their body. So that is not a physical anything.
Yeah, I see that. When I was using, you know, I could like 100% relate to that experience. You know, like as soon as it was a yes, you know, it was kind of like everything was gone away. You know, there was no more withdrawal, there was no more struggle, there was no more physical anything. It was just kind of like that was it. You know, everything was okay again. You're
getting to your dealer's house so you can get your fix. But as soon as you got that yes, most of that anxiety around it went away, and it was like, yes, it's coming. Yeah. And you already feel better. You haven't even gotten it in your hands yet.
Yeah, makes sense.
There's also there's a lady called Sally, a friend of mine, Sally Wise, and she's got some. She talks a lot about how I got very interested in her story, where when she realized, when she was in her worst states, that she used to be waiting for that off license to open, or the corner shop to open in the morning, and she didn't want to have so much alcohol at home, so she would go and buy it fresh every morning, you know, her alcohol, and on her way up there, she would have the shakes, and she would physically have the shakes. And when she'd get into the shop, she'd drop her money or whatever, and then walking back home, she'd be fine. And even in the madness of her addiction, she realized, oh my God, I haven't drunk any. I've stopped shaking.
Yeah.
you know. And I've also seen, the other thing that I've also seen is where the answer has been where people have always reached out for whatever drug it is, and then when they've had an understanding of this, suddenly the drugs don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So they're actually physically taking it, and it's not doing what it used to do.
So the answer to a drug addiction is raise your level of consciousness, or any addiction.
Absolutely.
You know, the biggest addiction we have is to self. I think that's what I see. One of the biggest addictions. We bring people out of their story. We bring people out of themselves. We point in that direction of oneness.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Thanks for bringing that up.
Great question.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions or comments? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amanda. This has been awesome.
Thank
Really,
you.
really love the work you're doing over there. Sally's amazing too. I love all the stuff that you're up to over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. And
Sure
you are
is.
all very beautiful people. So it's always a pleasure to hang out and do more of this stuff. You know, you guys, Greg and Harry, you're doing a great job. And everybody is on this call because they care. Right. That's it. Everybody that's on this call, everybody that's listening, or everybody that's here, they're intrigued, they've got curious, and just stay curious.
There it is. Great words to end it on. So we'll see you guys again. I guess we have something next week, don't we, Harry? This month was pushed off by a week because
It is. I'll post it after the show. It's Linda Pettit.
Ah, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That'll be another good show.
A spirit of recovery.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate you joining us, Amanda. This is great. Everybody
Thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of your days, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you all.